font 6, 7, 8, 956.
Hello, my name is Andrew Vanderwilly, and I'm here with Staff Sergeant Nicholas Taylor. Today's date is the 8th of November, 2011, and we're at Ball State University. During this interview, we'll be talking about Staff Sergeant Taylor's life before and during his military service. How are you today, Staff Sergeant?
Good.
Excellent. First, we'll start with your pre-career and starting from when and where you were born.
I was born in Elmira, New York, August 20th, 1979. I went to high school at Thomas A. Edison, junior senior high school in Elmira Heights, New York. I pretty much lived there my whole life in Elmira Heights. Graduated in June of 1998 and joined the Army in November of 1998.
And what was your family structure growing up?
I have a twin brother, fraternal. He's like 6'1", and I'm 5'8". So, I have a sister, and I just had my mother. So it was just a small group, and then my grandfather lived down the street a little bit, and that was pretty much how we grew up.
So you had a pretty tight-knit family then?
Yeah. Me and my mother get along, and me and my brother get along, and me and my sister get along, and yeah, it was a good family household. My mother did the best she could. So.
Is there any family military history?
Yeah, both my grandparents were in the Navy. My father was in the Navy. My cousins were in the Navy, Air Force, Marines.
You spoke that you grew up with your mother as the leading individual in the household. What, if you don't mind, where was your father?
My father, they never got married, so he lived across the U.S. in like California, Nevada. So I didn't have much interaction with him. I did have interaction with his parents because they lived in the town next to mine. So my dad was from New York, but he didn't stick around.
Okay. And was your reason for joining the military, was it kind of following your grandparents?
No, I wouldn't say that. It was, I did well in high school. I just didn't care much for school, and that's pretty much, if you want a place to live, you got to do something.
And what made you choose the Army?
Actually, the Army called looking for my brother because he took the ASVAB in high school. I was a Regents student. I was supposed to go to college and things like that. Like I had a few scholarships, but they called, and I was living with my dad's parents at the time, and my grandmother was like, "Well, Adrian's not here," who was my brother, "but Nick's here if you want to talk to him." So I got on the phone with him, and the Navy actually wanted me to join them, but I just went and talked to an Army recruiter. They came to the house I was staying at with my grandparents, and like a couple weeks later, I was in the Army. I went and took the ASVAB because I never took it, and a couple weeks later, I was in.
And is that what kind of drew you to be a paralegal?
I signed up to be infantry. That's what I wanted to do, but I'm colorblind. So when you're colorblind, your choices are really small. And I said, "So what's the best job I can get being a colorblind?" And he said, "Oh, you can be a paralegal. They punish bad soldiers." And I was like, "Well, I'm a bad teenager. I don't know if that's where I should go, but sure, why not?"
When going into this, were you looking for it to be a career, or?
Yeah, I knew I was gonna. Once I did it, I knew I was gonna stay in as long as I could.
You could imagine your family and friends' reactions to this?
No, I always thought maybe that was always a thought. Joining the military was always a thought when I was younger. It was something I was always looking forward to. But when you're a little kid, young teenager, your thoughts of the military are a little different. You're like Rambo kind of thing, but it doesn't pan out that way all the time. So my mother was upset that I joined, I think, and so was my grandfather. My mom's father was pretty upset that I joined because he was in World War II in Korea, so he didn't really want me to do that kind of stuff.
So signing up in '98 when we weren't in
Right.
in a big war, and it still played effect.
Yeah, I didn't. I told my mother I was joining, and she went to work, and the recruiter came and picked me up, and I was gone, and like I left her a little note saying, "Hey, I'm off. You know, I'll call you when I can."
So her first conversation with you about it was over the phone?
Well, she knew I was joining, but she didn't think I was really going to leave. So I called her like finally like a couple days later when I got the chance. So she was pretty upset about it.
Where did you have to report for boot camp?
We went to I went to the MEP station in Syracuse, and they flew me from Syracuse to Fort Jackson. Never been on a plane before and all that, so it was quite interesting.
When did it start to set in for you that your life was changing?
I mean, on the plane ride there, never being on a plane before, you know, you see it in the movies, you know, it's all quiet, and you're in a plane for real, and it's all noisy, and it's shaking, and I'm like looking around, I'm like, I won't flip out until everybody else starts to flip out. And then one of the stewardesses sat next to me and was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going join the Army." So it was pretty much, I knew I was in for a change when I was on the plane, because that was a big step by itself.
And then you said, is that where boot camp took place?
Well, we show up at the in processing station at Fort Jackson. You're there for like a couple days, and then you report to your boot camp at Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
And then what was that? What was your boot camp experience?
I sort of had an idea what it was going to be like, because I did Boy State when I was in high school, and the Marines come and they treat you like boot camp, sort of. I just knew that do whatever you're told, don't talk back, and you'll be fine. It was a little rough, a lot of hurry up, you know, and they want you to mess up because they want to see, you know, you don't expect you to be perfect, but they want to put you under pressure because they're trying to break you down and build you back up. So I knew it was going to be rough. So, and it was.
And in boot camp, do they build it around the individual, or is it around you as a unit?
It's around you as a unit. Everything is done together. If one person messes up, then everybody gets punished. A lot of smoke sessions and things like that. So it's try to work together. That way, if one of your buddies is failing, someone will step up and help him, so not everybody gets punished. So, you know, you try to look out for each other, because you'll get punished if someone messes up.
So would you say boot camp's more physically exhausting or mentally? I
would say I was in somewhat good shape, so it wasn't that bad physically. It's emotionally, it's pretty hard. All you want to do is sleep. When you wake up in the morning, you're like, man, I can't wait to go to sleep. And then when you get off at the end of the day, you're like, man, I can't go to sleep. And so it pays its toll, and always getting yelled at and things like that. But I mean, I enjoyed it a little bit. Wasn't too hard, wasn't.
Is that where you kind of built yourself up to more or less work like a machine, to wake up when you're told and go to sleep because you realize you need to?
Yeah. After a couple of days there, you start getting the routine. This is what time I'm gonna wake up. This is how I know how much time it takes me to get ready. I know how much time it takes me to brush my teeth, to shave, to make my bed, and you start to get on your cycle, and that way you know exactly when you have to get up.
And I read a book by Peter Kinswater. It was American Soldiers, and it talked about different boot camp experiences through different wars. And they were, say, in World War II, they were trained to hate the Germans and the Japanese, and then during Vietnam, the Vietnamese. Now, in peacetime, how does that transfer?
Well, they really don't teach you there wasn't really an enemy at the time, not when I went, so they really don't teach you to really hate. They just say the enemy in general. You know, this is what the enemy's going to do, this is what you're going to have to do. Just picture the enemy. Some of the older guys were still like, commie this, commie that, but they just say the enemy, really.
And how long was boot camp?
8 weeks, but I had a Christmas danza in between, so I think I got 2 weeks off, so it was about 10 weeks altogether.
And then when you started approaching the end of that 10th week, how did that feel?
It felt good. I didn't know what I had in store afterwards. They were always talking about you had to go to your specialty school, AIT, and I had no clue what that was going to be like. I thought it was just going to be like basic training again. Little nervous on what was the next step. I'm a creature of habit, so I tend to get used to something, and then when a change comes along, it messes me up a little bit.
So when you finished boot camp, were you able to select where you went? I know you said you were hindered.
No. Being a paralegal, the only place that you were allowed to go was Fort Jackson for AIT, and it was only right down the street. So they got us in a bus and they drove us down the street, and that was where I went to school.
So it was pretty much a classroom setting at that point?
Yeah. Yes. You got up, did PT like normal, and then you would go to class, and they would teach you what you needed to know.
And can you explain the transition from being a civilian into all of a sudden being regimented?
You don't have any free time. Like when you finally got free time, you had no idea what to do with it, really, the first couple of times. I mean, it was nice not having to worry about anything. Just all you had to worry about was to be at the right place, right time, be in the right uniform. Less outside distractions. You didn't have to worry about what your friends were thinking about, or what were you going to do that day. I mean, I thought it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy transition for me. I don't know. I mean, if you need me to elaborate more.
We're going to move into a little bit after you finished up with all of your schooling at AIT and everything, and I saw that you spent time in South Korea.
Yep, I did. Yeah, I was in there.
And what role did you play there?
I was a paralegal assigned to a battalion, 2nd FSB, and my job was when soldiers commit misconduct, the chain of command wants to punish them. Now they can either court-martial them, give them an Article 15, or chapter them. They could do all. A lot of times, if a soldier gets enough Article 15s, he gets chaptered. And our job as paralegals is to the unit will turn in what the soldier did, either on counseling statements or evidence like positive urinalysis or MP reports. And what we do is we take a look at what the misconduct was, and we pick the articles of the UCMJ that best fit what the misconduct that he did, and we type up an Article 15 on that. And then the commander reads it to them, and they punish them, take their rank, take their money, extra duty, restriction, things like that.
So what exactly is an Article 15?
Article 15 is non-judicial punishment. It's supposed to be a rehabilitative tool. A soldier messes up, you punish him, and then he carries on after his punishment's up. It's just used to try to straighten a soldier out or to punish them for mistakes that they make.
And then you said that leads into a chapter?
Sometimes if you get enough Article 15s or the offense is serious enough, it'll lead to a soldier being administratively separated from the military under certain chapters of 635-200, which is the Army regulation that covers administrative separations.
How often do cases like that lead to it?
At a brigade level is because that's where paralegals work at. You're assigned to a battalion, but you work at a consolidated legal center at the brigade level. You would probably do 30 to 60 Article 15s a month, and then you would probably do about 30 administrative separations a month. I mean, the main things is drugs, and then not showing up to work on time, missing formations, disrespecting non-commissioned officers when you're lower enlisted. Army's not for everybody, so.
And you talked about drugs, and did you have a lot of that ran into when soldiers would have their free time?
Yes, like if you're deployed, like in Korea, there's not a lot of drugs because you really can't. You'd have to know people off the base to get it. And when you're deployed, drugs really aren't an issue either. I mean, they can get it from local nationals, things like that. But when you're off on your free time is what gets soldiers in trouble, tends to. DWIs and doing drugs and things like that.
So, if you're back in the States then, and they get a DWI and they're on leave, they still have to report that to you?
Yeah, it gets back to us sooner or later. Somehow, it either makes a blotter or the soldier messes up and tells their supervisor, "Hey, I got a DWI." Most things, if you get in trouble in the civilian world, most of the military lets the civilians handle it because you don't want to request jurisdiction and things like that. But if you get let's say you get a DWI on base, I mean, you can get an Article 15 for that. If you get it off base near the installation, what is the local authorities will arrest you for a DUI, and then they'll call the military authorities who got to come pick you up.
Are there any cases in particular that stand out in your mind from just starting out?
When I was a younger soldier?
Yeah, like some of the first few cases that you kind of looked at and you're just like, wow.
I mean, it's just, don't get me wrong, the military doesn't really have any more misconduct than the civilians. It's just that we're a small knit, so, I mean, we have our murderers and rapists and child porn just like the civilians do. I think we tend to take it a little more serious, and we tend to punish them a little worse than the civilians do. I'm trying to think. My very first one that I helped with, this soldier, this is a long time ago, so I really don't remember much about it. This soldier beat his 11-year-old son to death because the kid was having problems, and they used to beat him all the time, and then finally he just died, and that was a pretty bad one.
And what would that lead to?
He was court-martial, general court-martial, which is you get sentenced to the max that they can sentence you to for your particular crimes. I mean, it'd take me a while to really get into what the separations between the levels of court-martials there are, because each one has its limits.
And do you feel that it's necessary to have stricter rules on military personnel as opposed to just regular civilians?
Yes, because you're so tight-knit and you live together. Like when I was in Afghanistan, there was like 10 of us in a little tent. And if you're not well-disciplined and there's misconduct going on, it tends to mess up morale. You know, if people keep showing up late and not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then there's no order, and I mean, really, that defeats the purpose.
It says here that you were deployed in 2003.
I was deployed 2003 to Afghanistan.
Now, when did you find out that you were being deployed?
You get an advance notice. I had come back from Korea in 2002, back to Fort Drum, and I went to First Brigade, which became a First Brigade combat team, and we knew that we were being deployed well in advance. And so what you do, you start getting ready. There's certain classes you have to take, certain training that you have to do before you go, and then you gotta. What are you going to do with your car? What are you going to do? Everybody's got to think about where's your wife going to go? Is she going to stay at Drum? Is she going to go back home? What am I going to do with all my stuff? Do I put it in storage?
So at this point, what was your family like? Your immediate family?
I was a single at the time when I was in Afghanistan. When I went to Afghanistan, I didn't have a wife or a kid. I had a girlfriend at the time. Actually, I met her in Korea and brought her. She was a soldier in Korea, and she came back to Fort Drum with me. But it was funny because I came back from Korea first, and then she came, but she ended up deploying first to Afghanistan. But she went to a different base than I did.
So what were your thoughts initially on being deployed?
I mean, I say I joined the Army to experience new things, so I was actually pretty excited about it.
And how do you prepare for something like that, you personally?
I tried not to. Actually, I tried not to just really think about it. I just did what the things I had to do to go, and not try to worry about what could happen or anything like that. I just lived one day at a time.
Is there any difference in the way you might prepare for being deployed compared to an infantryman or something?
Oh, of course. Yeah, their training is a little different than, they have, they're the main reason we go over there. I mean, I'm support, so I'm sure, I have less to worry about than what they do. They practice, clearing room procedures and the things that go with their job, and my job is, I really don't have to. I don't do that. So.
What were your thoughts on the Afghani people? Did you have any preconceived notions?
No, I didn't. I didn't have any preconceived notions. We had classes on their culture and stuff before we went. I don't, judge people based. If I don't know them, I don't judge them, and differences don't bother me that much. Because I knew there would be good Afghanis, I knew there would be bad Afghanis, just like everywhere you go.
Were there talks throughout the people who had already been there, and conversation makes its way to you on other people's opinions, and it didn't shape yours?
It shaped it a little bit. Some of the things that they said, their culture is quite different than ours. It got back to us, but I didn't really let it shape it that much. It just gave me an idea of what to expect.
Can you explain your first experience upon landing in Afghanistan?
Oh, geez, I'm trying to think. That was so long ago.
Well, is there anything that sets out?
I mean, when I got off the plane, I thought the heat was from the airplane itself. It wasn't, because as soon as I got away from the plane, it was still incredibly, incredibly hot. I was like, oh no, because I'm from upstate New York. It doesn't get hot, and it was pretty hot, and it just sand everywhere and dirt. So it was quite just shocked, because we landed and they were like, hey, put your gear over there and get in line, and they gotta scan your ID cards, and you just follow it like just sheep. Just follow the guy in front of you. You don't know what's going on. You don't know where you're staying. You don't know what you're doing tonight. So it was weird. Felt lost.
But it helped that everybody else was there with you?
Yes. Yeah. I wouldn't like to do that I wouldn't like to go by myself, because then, you don't have your buddy to turn to. Hey, what are we doing? I don't know. Ask so-and-so what we're doing. And if you were by yourself, that would be really hard.
Where at in Afghanistan did you land?
We landed in Kandahar. That's pretty much where I stayed the whole time in Afghanistan. I took sometimes I would take a helicopter to a FOB to do powers of attorneys, or to do a summary court-martial or things like that. But I mostly just stayed at Kandahar.
And what region is it?
It's been so long. They got dumped out of my brain. I know that's a bad answer, but.
What was your role in Afghanistan? Was it similar?
Yeah, I was the brigade legal NCOIC. It was me, and I had 2 paralegals that worked under me, and I had 2 attorneys that we worked for, and we ran the military justice shop. We ran the legal assistance shop. When soldiers have problems and they need help from an attorney, they come and see us. If it's for a power of attorney or a will, or they have just a general question that they need legal research on, they come. We pay claims. U.S. government damages something from a local national's vehicle, not, unintentionally. Well, we pay for that. So.
Does your office tend to get pretty hectic with locals?
No, because the locals never. When I was in Afghanistan, the locals didn't come. we came to them. We went outside, but this is at the beginning, so they really didn't know about the claims process, not as much as they do now. We would just go and it would get back to us, some paperwork, hey, this claim happened, we got to pay this guy. And we would do the paperwork up and research a little bit by talking to the local nationals, and then we would just pay them a fair amount for what had happened.
Did it take them a little while to understand the process?
Yeah, once they understood it, now everybody comes for claims money now. When I got to Iraq, that was what every week we had to go to a different go to Fob Hawk, and just drones and people asking for money. I mean, that's what happens.
Now, you said you really did not have any preconceived notions going into Afghanistan, but leaving,
I mean, they're just a different culture. I didn't have much interaction with off the installation. I did go off the base a couple times to investigate to get evidence for a court-martial that we did while we were there. It was different. It seemed like more middle-aged to me. The head guy lives in a giant compound made of clay that we went to, and him and his sons and their wives and his wives lived there all together. But they're friendly people. I mean, they're friendly. I came there. They offered us tea, and then we just talked about what had happened with the situation.
Dealing with the tea, I know that, like you said, they're very different. Their customs and traditions are different than ours here at home. Was that something that you had to get used to and played in your benefit to know their traditions and customs?
Yeah, you learn not to do certain things. Like, don't say, hey, that's a beautiful thing, because, like, hey, that rug is beautiful, because they'll probably try to give it to you, and then now you owe them. You see, now they can come to you and say, hey, remember when I gave you that rug? And so you try. They say, hey, don't turn down. If they give you tea, don't turn it down, even though it's from their cups. And healthcare isn't hepatitis and tuberculosis, things like that. You worry about that when you're drinking from their cups, but if you turn it down, then you've insulted them.
So did you experience that firsthand, somebody or yourself talking about something in somebody's house?
No. Luckily, no, I did not, because we knew that was taught to us way before. That was part of the briefs before you got over there. They say, hey, don't say this is beautiful. Especially with the women, don't look at the women, don't touch them. Definitely don't do that. So you know beforehand not to do certain things.
And when you found out you were being shipped out or sent back to the States, what first thoughts came across your mind?
Well, we were only supposed to do 6 months there, and then when we got around month 5, they were like, oh, you're extended for 2 more months. So then I was like, okay. And then when we got around month 7, they're like, oh, you're extended for 2 more months. So by the time it was actually time to go, we were like, were we really going this time? Are we really going home? I was happy about it. I wanted to see my family and things like that. But like I said, I get used to certain things. I got my work routine, and I was like, oh, I'll just have to relearn it when I go. Relearn another routine when I go home.
When they extend the every 2 months like that, combat pay and everything's extended along with that.
Yeah. So I mean, you make more money when you're overseas because you don't have to pay federal taxes and things like that, and you get hazard duty pay, so it helps. Of course, I blew it all anyway, so it don't matter.
And what was your experience like returning from Afghanistan?
A little weird. You don't know what to do. I mean, you feel lost a little bit. Like, you can do whatever you want. And when you're overseas, you constantly have your weapon with you. And I can't count how many times I got in my car and was getting ready to leave, and I was like, oh no, where's my weapon? Things like that. And you end up. It's hard to get back in the swing of things. I mean, you're a little lonely sometimes. because everybody goes. The guys you hung out with every day while you're over there, they got their families and stuff like that, and so you just have to make new friends. So
dealing between war periods, Afghanistan and Iraq before you were shipped out, what was the main thing that you did back in the States? Were there jobs that you had to do with the military, or was it your own free time?
no, when I got back from Afghanistan, I just went back to the brigade just ran the brigade shop, because it doesn't really, the legal mission really doesn't change when you're from forward to rear. You just do more military justice, because soldiers have more free time and they have more access to alcohol, and so they tend to commit more misconduct. So I just went back to being the NCOIC of First Brigade, and then I met my wife, and then I didn't marry her at the time. I just started dating her, and then because I got back in '04 and I was in Iraq in '05, so I didn't really have much time.
So were you able to keep in contact with her while you were in Afghanistan?
There's a phone center, and you can go buy phone cards from the PX from the store, and then you just go down there, and it's expensive. I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars calling, and you can shoot emails and things like that if the internet's up. The longer the Army stays somewhere, the better the perks get. The internet works all the time, and it comes faster, and you can call home easier.
You can imagine the position that you were in, being a paralegal, you have to have a somewhat ready access to
Right.
the internet. And
Yeah, we have
phones.
to have internet to do research, and some of our things that we do is done on software that's internet driven.
Getting back to your in-between period of Afghanistan and Iraq, you got back in '04 from Afghanistan,
Yep.
and immediately you were shipped out again in 2005. Did you know about that coming back, that you were going to be leaving? Or anything?
I re-enlisted, and I was supposed to actually PCS from Fort Drum to, I don't remember, I think it was Fort Bliss, Texas, and my big boss man asked, they didn't have anybody to replace me, so they said, hey, can you waive your re-enlistment option and take First Brigade Legal to JRTC, which is a training exercise you do before you deploy. Because we did it for Afghanistan, and we do it for, before you deploy, you have to usually do a training exercise, either JRTC or NTC. So I said, sure, I'm all for that. So I went to JRTC with First Brigade, and then coming back, they were like, oh, we still don't have a replacement for you. Do you mind going to Iraq? I said, no, I got no problem with that. So I went.
So were you sent out with a different group then?
Different soldiers, yeah. I didn't. When you come back from, because you're fenced in, you can't leave. Stop law, stop movement kind of thing. And when you come back from a deployment, that those things are lifted, so people can they can leave, they can go to other places, they can get out of the Army. So I had a whole new, because we went from a brigade to a brigade combat team, so the elements changed a little bit. So the people I deployed with were actually the people I worked with every day, and they each belonged to their battalion. And I brought most of them. You have to leave people in the rear to take care of things, but I brought most of them with me.
So it sounds like you pretty much welcomed going to Iraq. So
Yes, I did.
there really wasn't any. It was easier to prepare the second time around.
Right, because I had a better idea of what was going to happen and what I was going to do there. And I needed to know what I needed to bring and who I needed to bring and what jobs would be going. Plus, I had two very good lawyers that came with me, so I wasn't worried.
And so the fact that you weren't going with the same people that you went with the first time didn't really weigh on you?
No, because I had that whole year to get used to the soldiers I was bringing and my supervisors. In the Army, you adapt and you get used to the new people that come in, and you build your own little team. You know who your strong soldiers are and who your weak soldiers are, and just prepared for what you're going to have to do.
You said earlier when talking about the Afghani people that you don't like to make judgments. So was that your same thought going in with the Iraqi people?
Yeah, the same thing. Same thing. I'll let myself determine what, yeah, I can get some ideas of what other people's experiences are, but I don't judge people until I meet them firsthand myself.
How did serving in Afghanistan, did that lead you to have a better idea of what the people in Iraq might be like?
Yeah, I believe so.
Experience?
Well, it helped me get ready for things I did to welcome things I didn't understand, or to get be prepared for just the cultural differences between us and them. What were the cultural differences between Afghanistan and Iraq? I know there are several, but there's similar to tea, and if you say you like something, like yeah,
as you said,
I mean that's pretty much the way. That's pretty much the way it is everywhere. If we went somewhere else, and a U.S. soldier was like, "Hey, that's a beautiful thing," I'm sure they would try to give it to us too, to just try to appease us and make us happy, and thinking that now we owe them something. But Iraq was a little different. I wouldn't say that different. This is just a little. They're still the civilians you deal with. They're still very friendly people. Same goes with the females. Don't touch them and things like that. But the males are very friendly.
Where were you stationed in
I was
Iraq?
at Camp Liberty. It was in Baghdad, and I ran a brigade legal shop there. Same thing. The only difference between Afghanistan and Iraq was we had more of a role in detainee ops. I had a soldier assigned to deal with helping with the detention facility, and taking and things like that. We paid way more claims. Once a week we'd have to get in our Humvee, and we only drove like right off the base onto Fob Hawk, and that was like a community thing. The local nationals would come there, and we would meet them there, sort of like a neutral thing. And then we would take in claims and pay claims that we had taken in the previous week, or deny them based off, lack of evidence and things like that.
As far as hostilities go, and was it a little bit more intense in Baghdad than in Kandahar?
No, we get rocketed. Like when I was in Afghanistan, we got rocketed a lot in Kandahar. Every couple of days we would get rocketed. When I took helicopters to Oregon E-Day, we get rocketed. Same. And then when I was in Baghdad, we got rocketed numerous times.
So when you go out to collect claims, you're leaving as a convoy then?
Well, it's still within the compound. It's just sort of going through one gate out into another gate. That's a little island, So, we would just do a one-person vehicle there in an up-armor Humvee, and just going Fob Hawk. And they had their own. We had soldiers there that were protecting that little area too, because it was all protected on the way there.
And getting back to when you first arrived in Iraq, you said that the heat was the main thing that stuck out.
Well, in Iraq was the same thing. I mean, it was hot. We landed in Kuwait first, and I thought I was gonna die. I really did, because it was like 100 degrees. And I remember my boss saying, "You don't look well. You might want to go inside the tent for a little bit, try to get used to it." I mean, I couldn't even be outside. It was that hot. I definitely was not used to that.
What's one thing that they really push on you to be able to deal with it, to acclimate to those temperatures?
You just got to do PT when it's hot, to get ready for it, and try, wear your gear. Before you leave, you got to get used to wearing your gear beforehand. And unfortunately, as a paralegal, we don't really get that. I mean, we didn't get enough training as the combat MOSs got, so I was a little unprepared. But you acclimate pretty fast.
You had said that in Afghanistan you had to bring about the idea of claims to the local populace.
Yeah, we had cards and things that we would that we would, if let's say we were driving, we hit a vehicle with our Humvee, we would try to stop and leave a card where it had an explanation on what the steps to do to, get reimbursed and things like that. Yeah, in Iraq they already had that down packed, so.
So did that make it easier or harder?
It made I would say harder because the issue that we ran into a lot was repeat claims. We take over for somebody, right, and we start our claims process. If we don't get good turnover from them, from the people we took over for, the people that already got money for a claim that happened during their time, they're going to come back and they're going to say, this is what happened, I didn't get paid for this, and we're not going to know they got paid or not if their turnover wasn't well. So they would double dip, triple dip into get paid for the same incident numerous times. It's just we take advantage of the system. I mean,
and then if by you saying this, there's obvious cases that this did happen. How did you go about handling that?
We would just deny it.
Yeah. We
would say, you already received payment for this. You're not receiving payment again, and then they would they would know our cycle. Okay, this brigade is going to be here for a year. So in a year, I'm going to come back and try again with a different group of people and see if I can get paid again.
For you then, what would be the main differences of serving in a war zone compared to serving in the States?
When you're in the States, your job is more specific. You only deal with usually one thing. Like normally I deal with just military justice. But when you're deployed, you have to, you do the full spectrum. You do the claims, detainee ops, operational law, administrative law, and you as a small office have to do all that. So there's more work. The military justice portion goes down, but the other areas pick up. But you work longer hours because there's nothing else really to do. What are you gonna do?
As far as the types of cases were concerned, dealing with soldiers and the general populace, was there any difference in Afghanistan or Iraq, or is it primarily the same?
It's pretty much the misconduct's the same. Dealing with while I was in Afghanistan, we only did one court-martial in Afghanistan when I was there because it wasn't really established yet, and the soldier allegedly took money from a local national. That's what he did. So he got court-martialed for that because you don't want to be the first to ever do something like that and get caught. And then when I was in Iraq, one of the court-martials was the soldier had other misconduct, but one of his alleged misconduct was he stole from a local national, and it happens.
So would you have then courtroom procedures for a court-martial?
Same as in the rear. That's what we have for. We have a military judge that comes in. If the soldier elects a panel, there'll be a panel there. If he elects judge alone, there's the government, which is what I usually do. I work for the lawyers, and they represent the government. And then the soldier would have a defense counsel. He'd have his own lawyer that would work for him.
And was upon finding out when you were leaving, did you stick true to your 6 months in Iraq?
No, we did. I got there in August and we left in July, so it was about 11 months total. And then they said they weren't gonna extend us or anything like that, so we left.
So you went over there expecting 11 months?
Well, we went over there expecting a year, so it was actually pretty good to leave a couple of weeks early.
And how did your, was there a different homecoming, a different reception in coming home, being that you'd already done it before?
When I came back home from Afghanistan and Iraq, the Army's pretty good now. You come back and you drop off your weapons and you drop off your gear, and then you go to like an auditorium, and your family members are there to greet you and things like my grandparent showed up. My girlfriend at the time, it was a little complicated, my wife, but we were broken up and back together, long distance relationships tend not to work. And then, but she was there and she met me, and it was pretty good.
So she was your wife at the time?
No, she was my girlfriend at the time.
Okay. And when you went to Iraq, she was still in the States?
Yes.
And you were able to keep up
Yeah, that was what I called.
with...
Yeah, I called her all the time. She had my car, so saw how trustworthy I am. Big mistake.
Did it cost about the same to be able to call?
Oh, it was pretty expensive, but I tried to call as much as I could, but it was probably a couple $100 a month to call. There's ways to get around it, but then you have to use DSN lines, and you only get 10 minutes at a time. And so I would just buy the phone cards. I had nothing else. So the only bill I had at that time was my car.
So your options were to either place a phone call, Skype, or email?
Yeah, I mean, you could always write a letter, but I mean, who does that really anymore?
And being over in Afghanistan and Iraq, how did you cope with the situation individually?
Well, in Afghanistan, I spent a lot of time at the gym. I was younger then, so I spent a lot of time at the gym on my off time. But I mean, you really didn't have that much free time. Really, you were at work. When I went to work, it was dark out. When I left work, it was dark out. I mean, the whole day I spent at work. I mean, I had friends. I mean, you can always disappear for like an hour or so to go. As long as someone knows where you're at, you can always take like an hour off and, go chill for a little bit, or go get food or things like that. Go to the little shopette that they had.
So you had no way of kind of getting out of putting yourself out of the situation?
I mean, I actually had a pretty good setup. We lived in a tent, and you put up your poncho liners and things like that. You make a own little area in your tent, and I don't know how I got a TV. I got a TV and a DVD player, and they have movies at the PX. They bring them in, and you buy them. You can go and get into a movie or listen to some music. I mean, just a little escape reality. Some people read, but I read all day at work, so I try not to read when I get off work.
What was your favorite movies?
Oh, I can't remember back then. I remember my favorite movie in Iraq, because that wasn't that long ago. But I watched Serenity, which is the movie based off the TV show Firefly. I must have watched that every day while I was in Iraq. Must have seen it 100 times. It's still my favorite movie.
What type of R&R experiences would you have?
In Afghanistan, I didn't have any because you had to do a year to get your leave. You have to do a year, or have orders for a year. So we just did our time straight. When I was in Iraq, I got because we were there for a year, you could go on R&R. And they would, government fly you to anywhere you want to go. So I went home and went on leave, and I had a good experience. And then I actually went to Qatar for a couple days too while I was in Iraq. That was nice.
You went Qatar?
Yeah, I think I was in Iraq. Jeez, I don't remember. Yeah, Qatar. Some people call it Qatar. It's just I went on the ocean, and you got to drink your 3 beers a night, or 2 beers. I don't remember, so don't get me in trouble. And then you just go there for a couple days. No, that was in Afghanistan. I remember it. Yeah, it was in Afghanistan. I went to Qatar because I remember I hurt my back, and then I had to go back to the doctors when I got back to Afghanistan. But when I was in Iraq, we got in an R&R. We could go home for 15 days, and your 15 days started when you landed and when you left. So you didn't have to worry about getting stuck somewhere for a week, and that didn't cut off on your time.
So in Afghanistan, you said that's where you hurt your back?
Yeah, it hurt my back at the gym. being dumb, I was working out, and then I was looking at myself in the mirror, because that's what people do when you work out. And some girl passed my reflection, and I saw her in the mirror, and I turned around to look. Hey, who's that pretty lady? And bam, threw my back out.
And that's why you have to stand up.
That's it. And once you hurt your back, it's all downhill from there, and it comes and goes.
So, but getting back to being able to communicate with your family and your girlfriend at the time, was that also a way for you to get out? And did you talk to your girlfriend more than you would call?
Yeah, I talk to my girlfriend like a couple times a day. I call my mom maybe every couple days or so. Yeah, it's a way to escape, but I mean, sometimes it would cause more drama than it helps. You know, jealousy, you know, comes up, and what's she doing? I'm here. I'm stuck here. I don't have. There's nothing I can do when she's out doing whatever she's doing. It leads to some problems.
Her having your car.
Oh yeah, me having my car. Yeah. Great idea that was.
So would you say it's a little harder to have someone close back at home when you're deployed overseas?
No, it helps. I mean, at least you have something to look forward to. Hey, when I come home, I'm gonna, you know, whatever. I'm gonna get married, or because that's what our plan was: get married, have babies, and then it's a double-edged sword because you're there and she's there, and you're worried about what she's doing, just trust issues. So it helps, and it causes for some sleepless nights. But I mean, I'm sure everybody, even married couples, go through the same thing when they're over there. What's my spouse doing? It happens.
And your living arrangements in Afghanistan and Iraq. I know you said that you had a tent and you were able to get a DVD player.
You're right.
But was there anything else that kind of stood apart between you and your living arrangements and, say, a frontline infantryman's?
Oh, theirs was much worse. Sometimes they would just, they lived wherever they were at the particular moment. I mean, you know, sometimes they would occupy a building, and then they'd just stay there for a little while, and then they'd come back to the base. But you know, they had it pretty rough. At least I knew where I was going to sleep usually every night. You know, when I traveled out to the FOBs, me being a paralegal, they would be like, you know, here's where you're going to sleep tonight, and you know, I had a bunk or whatever, me and my attorney. So we always get taken care of where we go, because there's only a few paralegals and there's only one lawyer. So.
Getting back to the book that I talked about earlier, Peter Kinsvatter's American Soldiers, he talked about in previous wars there being animosity between men in the rear echelon and then those on the front line. Yeah, there's
they get pretty mad at us sometimes, but we know that what we do is for them. So if they have a request, I go above and beyond trying to solve it. I mean, that was the main reasons we get in helicopters and fly out there. Hey, this soldier really needs a power of attorney for his wife. Oh, okay, we'll get in a helicopter. We'll go out there right now. And I mean, and a lot of that's taken into consideration. Yeah, they call us, you know, pogues and things like that, and it happens.
This project primarily deals with your connection with the First Infantry Division. What was your unit's connection to the 1ID?
Actually, none, and I don't know. They asked if I had ever deployed, and I said yes. I was with 10th Mountain Division the whole time when I was there, and I fell under 4th ID and 3rd ID, and I fell under 10th Mountain Division itself, but I never fell under 1st ID. So I know this is what this is primarily, and that's what I asked, and I was like, I don't know, why am I here? Because I'm deployed with 10th Mountain.
Is there a sense of pride that goes along with that, being a part of the 10th Mountain, or?
Yeah, you get soldiers tend to get attached, I think, to a certain division, because if you deploy with numerous divisions, you can wear numerous combat patches, and a lot of people will just stick to one, either their first or their favorite. I mean, if I were to deploy, I would probably still wear the 10th Mountain Division patch because I did 2 deployments with them, and I spent 10 years there. I consider that like my home because I actually own a house near people tend to like compare combat patches. Like you'll talk crap about someone who doesn't have the same one you do. So there's a little bit of pride, especially like 10th Mountain is it's cold there, so a lot of soldiers don't want to go there. So when they see 10th Mountain patch, they're like, ooh, it's cold.
You kind of make it sound like people stick with their favorites or they'll be transferred around. Do you somewhat have a choice on that, or is it kind of, does it depend?
Well, when you can put, there's ways to go where you want to go if a slot is there. So you call either you can re-enlist for it, hey, I want to re-enlist to go to this place, and that way it's in your re-enlistment contract, and that way you're guaranteed to go there. Or you get with your supervisors, and they call HRC for you, human resources, and they talk to your branch manager and try to get you moved to where you want to go. So let's say it's my time to leave Fort Leonard Wood. I want to go to Fort Drum. I would have my big boss contact my branch manager and see, hey, is there a slot at Fort Drum for him? If yes, then he'll try to get me in there. If not, then I'll have to go somewhere else.
Then getting back to your after the conflict experience, do you feel like it's going in the right direction for
it was
both
definitely going,
Iraq and Afghanistan?
Yeah, I believe it was going in the right direction. I mean, it's hard to change a cult. It's hard to change what's been going on for so long. You just can't. It doesn't just change overnight. And we're there in their land, so I mean, there's going to be some animosity and definitely some fight back.
So in the overall, you feel like they're propping up to try to build them up as opposed to just changing their traditions.
We're trying to. It's I believe. I mean, trying to turn them into democracies and things like that. I mean, you can't. It's hard to change people's minds like I said, overnight. But I think it's going in the right direction.
And then, thinking back through Afghanistan and Iraq, you have talked about being rocketed kind of seemed like a regular thing.
Right.
Did you have a few close calls to where you really started to worry? Or?
No, not really. I mean, they would land in where you lived or something like that, but I never had any that were close to me. Probably I just consider myself pretty lucky that none of them were ever close to me. Sometimes when we would go out to the FOBs, they would get rocketed every day for weeks, and then I'd go out there and they wouldn't get rocketed at all. And then they were happy when I was there. No, I just consider myself, I got good luck, I guess. You could put it like that.
What exactly is the FOBs?
The forward observation posts and things like that, bases that are, when you have the brigade headquarters is in one area and the battalions are in other areas.
Do you feel joining the military and that phone call being placed for your brother and you end up, do you feel like that was necessary, and do you feel like the military has helped your life?
Oh, the military's definitely helped my life. I don't know what I'd be doing if I wasn't in the military. Probably, I don't know, I don't want to speculate, but I mean, I don't think it would have turned out too well. I like the military, and you don't have to worry. I mean, like I said, I never have to worry about the worst things. I still know I'm going to have a place to sleep tonight, even if my house burnt down. Right now, the Army isn't going to let me live on the streets. They're going to take care of me. The Army does do a good job, I think, of taking care of soldiers. If I didn't have food in my fridge, I know I can make a phone call and someone will come and get me food. Like I said, there's always that safety net that I enjoy about the Army.
So it's like one big family.
Yeah, it's pretty much. I mean, even though you don't like everybody in your family, you're not going to like everybody in the Army. But yeah, even if your nasty cousin, you're still going to let him stay in your house if you don't have a place to live. And the Army's like that. I think they do take care of their own. Has
the military changed the way you view your community in Elmira, or how you get involved at all?
I mean, I don't change my view of Elmira. I don't know. I've been in so long that it's hard to really imagine being a civilian and the freedoms that they have to just do whatever they want. I got a pretty close-knit family when I go to Elmira, go home to the Heights. Like I always hang with the same people. That's probably, I don't know if the Army did that, where I always go back to the people I know. I don't know if I just know that, you know, civilians really don't. I don't think civilians look out for each other as much as soldiers do.
But what I meant by getting involved in community is by paying attention to politics more and being involved more than just the average citizen who kind of goes along.
Yeah, they
for
do.
the ride.
They definitely do. I wouldn't say I in general do, but I think military people tend to actually be more involved in government than definitely the average civilian. They tend not to care who's in charge. In the Army, we tend to. But you know, I'm never really home long enough to get involved in the politics of my hometown. I'm never really there at all. I might be there a couple weeks out of the year, not really enough to do anything.
About the politics in the nation as a whole.
Yeah, we definitely care more about you know, things like that. We tend to worry about who's going to be in charge and the laws that are being passed. I think we do.
Before getting into the military, what values did you have as a civilian?
I don't know. I was a loyal friend. I know that. I was a pretty loyal friend. Besides that, I probably didn't have much values. Worry about, you know, myself, and my family and my friends. That was it.
And then today?
Oh, I mean, you know, you learn different values in the Army. Integrity. You know, you try not to lie. I mean, lying's pretty bad in the Army, and you have honor. And I tried to, you know, when I was a teenager, if I saw someone that needed help, I probably wouldn't have cared. But now, I mean, if I see someone that needs help, I try to help out as much as I can. You know, saw cars broken down on the side of the road. Hey, pull up and see if they need help. You know, someone's in a grocery line and they're $5 short. You know, and you got $5, just give it to them. Things like that.
So the military's changed you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Made you into what you would possibly consider a better person.
Yeah, I would definitely say I'm a better person. You have more pride, and I'm just trying to think. You definitely. When I was a teenager, I'm shy still, anyways. But I was terribly shy, and you get more of a backbone, I guess. The military teaches you, because you have to. You know, you have to give briefings. You have to get up in front of people and talk. You have to yell at people and things like that. And that stuff takes a certain amount of fortitude to do something like that, to have the ability to do that. And some people are, if you're quiet and you can't talk in front of people, the military is going to be a really hard place for you. It was hard for me at first. I remember my first couple getting in front of people and talking. It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Not that this one's any better, but it's.
Was your first few experiences like that, dealing with paralegals below you?
Well, I mean, when I first joined, a paralegal has to talk to people who outrank them greatly a lot of times. Like, I was a private. I had to talk to my first sergeant and my company commanders of the companies that fell under my battalion. I remember when I first got there, my supervisors were like, "You need to call first sergeant." So I'm like, "I'm not calling first sergeant. So I'm just a private. Who am I to call them?" And you learn that you have to. And so now when I get a new paralegal, I'm like, "Hey, I need you to call first sergeant." So it's the same thing. They're like, "I can't," because you're straight out of AIT. you know, there a staff sergeant is, you know, he's way above you, and you're scared to even talk to a staff sergeant, let alone a first sergeant. But you overcome it pretty fast because you just tell your paralegals, hey, that's your job. How about I'll call them first, and you hear how I talk to the first sergeant, you know, with respect and tact, and then you just copy that. And then the first couple of times you're going to be stuttering and not know be lost in your thoughts and not know what the heck that you're asking them.
So it makes you a little bit more understanding of those fresh paralegals since you went through the same thing. Right.
When I get new paralegals, and I try to teach them how I learned, but each soldier is different, and you have to approach each soldier differently. Some soldiers work well when you yell at them, and others shut down completely, and you have to try a different tactic when dealing with those soldiers. And you learn with each one. It's a trial and error at first, and then you have each soldier down packed on how you have to approach them, and then by the time you get really good at it, they leave, and you have to start all over again with a new soldier.
So when it comes down to the military and everything throughout your life up until now, you'd say the military has definitely played a strong role in your life and built you into what would be the man today.
I don't know what would have without the military. I mean, I own a house. I don't live there, but someone lives there. You know, I have 2 cars, and I have 3 children, and a wife that likes me half the time, and I wouldn't have any of that. I don't know what I would have without the military. I definitely wouldn't have a house. I don't know what I would have did. That's the part. I just don't know what I would have did. I had no clue if I didn't join the military.
So your family today, your immediate family today then is your wife and 3 kids?
Yeah, they live in New York. I'm still in Fort Leonard Wood. They live in New York. So yeah, it's my immediate family is my wife and 3 kids, and I mean I still talk to my mom every couple weeks or whatever, and then I talk to my mother's parents. I talk to them every couple weeks, and when my brother calls me, and I talk to my sister.
I assume it's a little cheaper to make phone calls.
Yeah, definitely. Gotta get the family plan on your cell phone.
Before we close, is there anything about your life or a military career that we haven't talked about that you would like me to know?
I mean, I don't know. If you have any other questions, I really don't. Like I said, I did a year in Korea, and I did a year in Cuba, and that was an interesting year. No, I don't.
In Afghanistan and Iraq, can you describe the interaction with the locals and the customs and primarily the laws? And how you mediated that conflict?
Well, I mean, they have their own laws, and we have, like, I only really worry about the Uniform Code of Military Justice with soldiers, but they have certain laws. I mean, my interaction with them they're a little more, the males are a little more touchy-feely, I guess is the term. They hug each other a lot, you know, more than you would say an American would hug. When they meet someone, even though they saw them yesterday, they hug and kiss and things like that, and they're always happy to see each other, somewhat more than we are. I mean, there's certain things there's certain insults, like you know how we'd say, you know, what's up, dog, and things like that. You definitely would never say that to them, and you would never joke around with, you know, their mother or their sister or their wife or anything like that. That would be unforgivable to do something like that. I mean, like the only real, I don't know what you're really asking me. That's unfortunate.
Well, then when you would go to a house, you would talk to the man of the house, and
right.
That would be it.
Yes. You wouldn't talk to his wife or anything like that. I know I wouldn't. Like if someone else does, that's their call, but I definitely wouldn't do that.
And then the question is, how is America portrayed through Afghanistan and Iraq, like, what do they think of? Do you have an idea for the common American citizen and their thoughts on them?
Well, how do they think of us?
Yeah.
They've not too kindly, I would say. They think we're like unreligious, we have no morals and things like that. I mean, we just do whatever we want.
And that's the general populace?
Probably. I would say that they think that we have too much, and that we don't. I would say, yeah, that's their general interpretation of us, is that we lack certain morals, and that we're spoiled, I guess.
And that doesn't affect their relationship with you guys, or can you see that when you're talking to them?
I could see that. I mean, my interaction with them, they think that we have less ethics than they do. I mean, I'm sure they think that. You can tell, because something that they wouldn't do, we would do, and I'm sure. I mean, yeah, I think that's what they think of us.
And do you think that plays into their thoughts on us trying to push, like,
oh yeah,
things on them?
They think we're going to try to they're going to change their basic beliefs and what they believe in. That we'll try to push ours on theirs, and I'm sure there's a little fight back because of that. Just like the liberals and the conservatives here, the liberals are trying to change the conservative virtues, and I'm sure that it's probably similar to that. It's about the best I can think of it.
So do you consider yourself more of a conservative then?
Me, I don't know. I'm some things I'm conservative about, and other things they don't bother me at all, really. I mean, I think the government has too much control on certain aspects of our life, and then other things I think they could get more involved with. Me being a smoker, I like I say in the government, I can't smoke anywhere now, and I can't. But I really don't. I mean, I try not to get in people's personal lives, and whatever they do behind their closed doors is their business, and I don't. I think sometimes the government gets too much into that.
But your interaction with locals on the whole, would you say that a lot of them come across as reserved or kind of open to you coming in?
They're reserved. They're not going to share everything with us. They don't. They tend to just. I mean, my interaction, they tend to just answer the questions that are asked. They don't want it. They don't put out a lot about themselves, because that's their private matters, and us as Americans, we like to put our business out, I think, more than what they do.
So they sit there, and does that make it hard to build a trusting relationship?
Definitely, because they're if you ask them certain questions, they're not going to answer them, I think. But we're more apt to answer questions, and it helps build a rapport to sharing of personal information, I guess, would help people understand each other better.
You said you had classes before you went over to Afghanistan and
yeah.
Iraq. Without these classes, could you tell a sense of appreciation from the locals when you would go in and you'd say do different things that is their traditions and customs
definitely.
that you wouldn't necessarily know automatically?
Those classes help greatly, and they try to teach you. I mean, you're supposed to learn some words in their language and stuff like that. You really are supposed to before you get over there. It's you have to take classes. Stop, go, things. Certain commands you try to learn, and it helps it helps to understand them. And I mean, some of these classes are in depth about certain the religious beliefs and what you're allowed and not allowed to do. I mean, they really are helpful, and I think that if you make an attempt, they appreciate it and things like that.
So would you say that they're grateful that that you're over there on the ground, or kind of depends?
Most of them, I don't know. I mean, it's give or take. Some people probably aren't happy that, I mean, you'll talk to one guy and he's happy that you're there, or he pretends he's happy, you're happy that he's happy that you're there, and the other guy would be like, he's not very happy that you're there, so.
Won't give you the time of day?
Yeah. No, they're just actually mad that you're there. They're just being there is an insult to them. Some people are like that. They don't want us there. That's their home. It's just, I mean, if it would be the same if I'm walking down the street and, you know, another country, the military is in my backyard, I'm not going to be probably too appreciative of that. So some people are like that. And other people are happy that we're there because of the changes that we brought.
Do you feel like these changes will hold?
I hope so. For how long, I don't know, really. They could hold for forever. Or as soon as we're out of there for good. A couple months later, someone else comes in and takes over and changes everything back. Your mission in the 4th MBB has changed recently. Right.
How will that affect you and your job?
Well, actually, what we were doing before, I only had a small part with it because it was more of administrative and operation aspects of helping in a catastrophe in the United States. So there's certain laws that are way different than what I deal with usually. So now that we're going to full spectrum operation, that's what I'm actually used to. So I have more experience with that, so it's actually going to be easier for me to run my shop if I actually have to, if we do a world deployment and stuff, because I've done that before. And when I went to when we did training with the Sea Smurf mission, I was sort of out of my element. But it ain't nothing. I mean, there's always, being a paralegal, your job is to do research. So if a particular question is asked, you just look it up, and just the hard part is just knowing where you have to look.
So in your case, you're looking forward to the change?
Yes. Plus, I'm about due for a deployment anyways, so I'd like to go back over there.
When is that?
They haven't said anything, but I'm just looking forward. If I get a chance to go, I enjoy going.
What's your motivating factor for staying in the military?
To be honest, I got 7 years till I retire, and I just want to stay in until that, and then I'll get out, and at least I know that I'll have some income, and I can get another job and do something else, and then I get my benefits and things like that. That's the main reason I want to stay in, is I do okay in the military, and at least I know I have, like I said, there's certain guarantees that I know I have that aren't provided in the civilian world.
I had once heard that if there's a battle that took place somewhere, there are legal teams that will show up and they'll be questioning those who participated in the battle.
Yeah, whenever you're over in a deployed environment, whenever there's an escalation of force, usually there's a 15-6 investigation that's done to hey, what happened? You know, why was there an escalation of force? What did that local national do to bring about the raise of violence? Either did he shoot at them or did we shoot at them first? What happened? So every time there's an escalation of force, there has to be an investigation involved in what happened.
So every time somebody pulls a trigger, there's questions after and possible repercussions,
Right, yeah,
whether it's necessary.
in this type of environment, yes, because they don't have uniforms. It's not they're not dressed, so we don't. As soon as you see in conventional warfare, you see the enemy. Doesn't matter what he's doing. You just shoot him because he's the enemy. You know he's the enemy. They don't have to be attacking you. But unfortunately, with the way it is now, you don't know who the enemy is. So if someone shoots at you and you shoot back, there has to be an investigation on why, usually. Why did that happen? Because they tend to shoot at you from behind other civilians, and you have to make sure that you didn't unfortunately kill any innocent people, because that does happen.
So in that case, do you not only interview or question the soldiers, but also the civilians?
Well, usually the company, the group that was there themselves does the investigation. Like all the attorney really does is just review it to make sure that all the questions were answered. The commanders appoint a 15-6 officer to determine what happened, and he could question the local nationals with an interpreter if he wanted to. I mean, he has a couple days to do the investigation, and then he could question the soldiers and see what happened. Every time there's a significant incident, there's going to be an investigation involved. Every time there's a death of a soldier or an escalation of force, there's usually an investigation involved.
Dealing with claims and then escalations of force and inquiries made on those, how do you come about to just mediate between both sides? Starting with the claims, and they come to your desk, and do they set the paperwork on your desk, and then you get back to them, or how do you deal?
No,
with
you
that?
usually when I was in Iraq, we would go to I can't figure out what to call it, like a community center where they would meet us, and they would bring their evidence, and then the local nationals that worked with us, they would interpret it, and we would talk to them and say, well, what is he saying? Because we would talk to them and through an interpreter, and they would say, this is what he's saying happened or she's saying happened, and we would get the paperwork translated, and then we would look into it. And if they said that, let's say they said, on this day a military vehicle ran my car, and what we would do is we would look to see if any of our military vehicles were there at the time to ram that car. And if there was, and then we would ask, hey, do any of you guys remember ramming this car? And they were like, yeah, I did. I left a little claims card. Or they'd be like, no, we definitely did not. And then the lawyer would determine whether to pay it or not. I mean, that's the lawyer's job. My job is just to do the paperwork and things like that and do research.
So before we finally do put this to a rest, is there? I know I offered the question once if there was anything that you had thought of through your life in the military or benefits between them that you feel I should know.
I mean, I love the Army. Like I said, I don't know what I would have did without it. I don't know if I would have been in jail or alive, or maybe I'd be a millionaire. Who knows? But just not knowing I don't like that. So and like I said, you're always going to be taken care of. Yeah, do you sacrifice? Yes. I mean, like I said, my wife doesn't live here, so I only see my kids like once every couple months, if that. So I miss a lot of things. Their first walk, their first talk, words. I miss all that stuff, but it pays the bills, and that's important to me, that I know that I'll be taken care of, and that I know that that I can support my family is like the main issue why I'm still in the Army, is I know I make enough to live off of barely, but I make enough.
You're one of those lucky few that supports your family today and securing their future
Right,
at the same
yeah.
time. On behalf of myself, my family, and Ball State University, I would like to thank you, Staff Sergeant Taylor, for participating in this event and for your service to our nation.
Thank you.
God bless and good luck.
Am I good?